The Witcher Season 4 didn't spark excitement, debate, or hype. It landed with the dull thud of a show nobody asked for, like Netflix accidentally hitting renew out of habit. This series isn't limping anymore. It's being Weekend at Bernie'd into relevance. Once upon a time, this was a golden ticket. Beloved books, massively successful games, a dark fantasy world, dripping with monsters, politics, and moral gray zones, and a lead actor who actually gave a damn. That should have been an easy win. Instead, what we got over 3 seasons was a mess of confused storytelling, vanishing character logic, and a growing sense that the people in charge actively disliked the source material they were adapting. By the time Season 3 rolled around, most viewers weren't watching because they loved it. They were watching out of obligation, curiosity, or sheer disbelief. And now the main reason people are talking about Season 4 is because the one man holding the whole thing together walked away. Henry Cavill didn't just leave a role, he left a sinking ship, and everyone knows it. Netflix wants us to pretend nothing happened, that swapping out Geralt like a broken light bulb won't matter, that the audience won't notice or care. But here's the problem. Geralt was the show for a lot of people. Strip him out, and what's left is a hollow fantasy shell that barely resembles The Witcher anymore. This doesn't feel like a continuation. It feels like a contractual obligation. A show being made because it can be, not because it should be. And that's what makes Season 4 fascinating in the worst possible way. Not as entertainment, not as art, but as a case study in how long a franchise can survive after everyone has emotionally checked out. The suspense isn't in the story anymore. The suspense is in whether anyone still cares enough to press play. Season 4 exists in a bizarre vacuum where Netflix is pretending nothing is wrong while everyone else is very aware that the house is on fire. The marketing says new chapter, but what they really mean is, please don't notice the missing lead actor. Liam Hemsworth stepping into Geralt's boots, it's damage control, and not even the convincing kind. This isn't a Doctor Who regeneration situation where the story is built around change. Geralt isn't supposed to be interchangeable. He's not a mask you swap out when the original breaks. He's a character defined by presence, physicality, and a very specific energy. And pretending otherwise just insults the audience's intelligence. Netflix is gambling that viewers are either too loyal or too indifferent to care, but loyalty has limits, and indifference is a death sentence. What makes this worse is that Season 4 isn't arriving after a beloved run that earned goodwill. It's arriving after 3 seasons of steadily eroding trust. Every creative decision felt like it was made in opposition to what fans actually wanted. Plotlines dragged on forever, or went nowhere. Characters changed personalities between episodes. Emotional beats were rushed, unearned, or completely undermined by sloppy writing. Instead of tightening the story, the show kept bloating itself with side arcs, message-first storytelling, and characters nobody asked for. By the end, it didn't feel like a fantasy epic. It felt like homework. And now Netflix expects people to re-enroll for another semester. The funniest part is how the studio keeps acting shocked that viewers left, as if the audience just mysteriously vanished for no reason at all. No, people didn't leave because they're toxic or impatient or unable to understand complex storytelling. They left because the show stopped being good. They left because it stopped respecting its own world. And they especially left because the one guy openly fighting to stay faithful to the show. What really seals The Witcher's fate isn't just the casting change or the collapsing audience numbers, it's the complete identity crisis at the heart of the show. Nobody seems to know what this series is even trying to be anymore. Is it a dark fantasy adventure? A political drama? A character study? A vehicle for modern messaging dressed up in medieval cosplay? The answer shifts every episode, and that confusion has been there since Season 1, quietly rotting the foundations. The world of The Witcher is supposed to feel dangerous, dirty, morally compromised. Instead, it often feels oddly sterile, like a theme park version of suffering where characters talk about trauma more than they actually experience it. Stakes are constantly announced but rarely felt. People die, kingdoms fall, betrayals happen, yet nothing seems to carry weight because the writing never slows down long enough to let consequences breathe. Characters don't grow naturally, they're shoved into new personalities whenever the plot demands it. Yennefer flips between ruthless, vulnerable, arrogant, and self-pitying, depending on the scene. Ciri is endlessly described as important, without the story ever earning that importance through meaningful development. And Geralt, the supposed emotional and narrative anchor, gradually turned into a grunting side character orbiting everyone else's drama. When your main character feels optional, something has gone seriously wrong. This is why Season 4 feels so hollow even before it airs. The show burned through its strongest material and its strongest performances without ever figuring out what made them work. Instead of refining its tone, it doubled down on excess. More speeches, more subplots, more symbolism, more self-importance. Fantasy thrives on immersion, but The Witcher keeps breaking its own spell. You're constantly aware of the writers behind the curtain, nudging the story in directions that feel forced and artificial. And once that illusion is gone, it's So here we are, standing at the doorstep of The Witcher Season 4, not with excitement or anticipation, but with a kind of exhausted curiosity. The kind you feel when a franchise just won't die no matter how many times it's been run through the ground. This season isn't asking viewers to care, it's daring them to. Daring them to overlook the missing lead, the broken narrative, the years of squandered potential, and the growing sense that none of this actually matters anymore. And maybe some people will still watch, not because they're invested, but because they want closure, or because hate-watching has become the only remaining form of engagement. But that's not success. That's survival on life support. A show like The Witcher should dominate conversations, inspire fan art, spark debates, and leave people desperate for more. Instead, Season 4 feels like it will arrive, briefly trend, get torn apart online, and then vanish without leaving a mark. No legacy, no cultural impact, just another expensive entry in Netflix's long list of forgotten originals. And that's the real waste here. Not the money, not the actors, not even the time. It's the fact that this could have been something special. It could have been a defining fantasy series of its era. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about what happens when ego outweighs storytelling and ideology replaces imagination. Season 4 won't be remembered as the moment The Witcher redeemed itself. It'll be remembered, if at all, as the season that proved everyone was right to walk away. Because once a show loses its soul, no amount of marketing, recasting, or brand recognition can bring it back. At this point, the question isn't whether The Witcher can be saved. That ship sailed, hit an iceberg, sank, and is now being filmed as a documentary about poor decision-making. The real question is how long Netflix will keep pretending this isn't over. And when the credits finally roll for good, the most honest reaction won't be anger. And when all the noise finally dies down, when Season 4 finishes its run and quietly disappears from the front page like it was never there to begin with, that's when the full scale of the failure will really sink in. Not with outrage, not with petitions, not with dramatic finales, but with silence. No one will be asking where the story goes next. No one will be begging for renewal. No one will care enough to argue. The conversation will move on because the show gave people nothing worth holding on to. That's the most damning outcome imaginable for a franchise that once had everything going for it. Massive built-in audience, rich lore, iconic characters, and a cultural moment that was begging for a dark fantasy heavyweight to fill the void left by Game of Thrones. Instead of rising to that challenge, The Witcher slowly strangled itself with poor decisions, creative arrogance, and a stubborn refusal to listen. Season 4 won't reverse that. It can't. You don't rebuild trust by pretending it was never broken. You don't win back audiences by telling them they're wrong for noticing the decline. And you definitely don't replace the heart of your show and expect people to emotionally reattach like nothing happened. This season will exist. Episodes will drop, reactions will be muted, and then it will be gone. Another bloated, expensive reminder that franchises aren't immortal and audiences aren't stupid. The irony is that Netflix will likely learn nothing from this. They'll blame market conditions, toxic fans, unrealistic expectations, anything except the writing and leadership that drove the series into the ground. And somewhere down the line, another beloved property will get fed into the same machine, with the same promises, the same hype, and the same inevitable outcome. The Witcher Season 4 isn't just a bad continuation of a failing show. It's the final proof that this adaptation was never about honoring a story. It was about owning a brand. And brands don't bleed, don't sue. And this is where Season 4 crosses from simple disappointment into something almost embarrassing. Because at some point you have to ask who this show is actually being made for now. It's clearly not for fans of the books, who checked out years ago after realizing the story they loved was being treated like an inconvenient suggestion. It's not for fans of the games either, who came in expecting grit, moral complexity, and characters that actually resemble their counterparts. It's not even really for fans of the earlier seasons, because whatever goodwill they had was burned to ash by inconsistent writing, narrative bait and switches, and the slow sidelining of the character the show was supposedly built around. Season 4 feels like a product designed for an imaginary audience that only exists in Netflix boardrooms and Twitter echo chambers. The kind of audience that applauds intention over execution and confuses criticism with hatred. And that's the most maddening part. This show constantly acts like it's brave, bold, and rebellious, when in reality it's safe, corporate, and aggressively predictable. Every risk it takes is cosmetic. Every subversion feels pre-approved. There's no danger, no edge, no sense that anything truly uncomfortable might happen. The world of The Witcher should feel cruel and unforgiving, a place where good intentions get you killed, and monsters wear human faces. Instead, it feels padded, sanitized, and endlessly explained to death through dialogue. Characters don't act, they announce. They don't struggle, they monologue. And when conflict arises, it's usually resolved not through hard choices or sacrifice, but through convenient writing and emotional speeches that feel ripped straight from a checklist. Season 4 isn't going to fix this, because it can't. Fixing it would require admitting mistakes, stripping things back, and rebuilding the story around what actually works. That means focusing on character, atmosphere, and consequence. It means tea. And here's the cold, hard truth about The Witcher Season 4. It's a masterclass in squandered opportunity. Every misstep, every decision that felt edgy or progressive instead of smart, every sidelined character, every plot twist that went nowhere, those weren't accidents. They were the result of a system that no longer cares about stories, only optics, agendas, and brand maintenance. The show had all the ingredients for greatness. A rich, dark world, morally complex characters, and a fan base hungry for faithful adaptation. Instead, it became a lesson in how to alienate every audience at once. By the time this season hits screens, it won't even be a debate anymore. It will be a quiet nod to inevitability. People aren't just turning away because they're disappointed. They're turning away because they've already been burned too many times. They've learned that this show can't be trusted. The irony is staggering. A world of monsters, magic, and destiny was meant to feel alive and unpredictable. Instead, the real monster was the creative team's inability to commit to anything but noise, flash, and messaging over substance. Season 4 can throw in new faces, new story arcs, and a shiny marketing campaign, but it won't change the fact that the heart of the show, the part that made people care, was already eviscerated, and no CGI spectacle or cameo will fix that. This isn't a comeback. It's a stubborn resurrection of something everyone already agreed was dead. And the suspense, the only thing left to cling to, isn't about the story. It's about endurance. Who will still be watching? Who will make it through the season? Who will leave halfway, muttering, "Yeah, that's enough"? Because make no mistake, The Witcher has become less about Geralt's journey and more about watching a franchise flail in real time. And if you thought this was going to be fun, surprising, or even worth the screen time, congratulations. You're already rooting for a corpse. And maybe that's the final insult of all. Not that The Witcher became bad, but that it became irrelevant. Bad shows can still be fun. Bad shows can still be mocked, dissected, argued over. Irrelevant shows just drift off into nothing, unloved and unmissed. Season 4 feels like it's already there before it's even aired, like a tree falling in a forest where nobody bothered to show up. Netflix can pump out trailers, interviews, and carefully worded hype pieces, but none of that creates passion. Passion comes from trust, and that trust was burned to the ground seasons ago. What's left now is a hollow brand wearing the skin of a once great story, shuffling forward because nobody had the courage to put it down. And that's the tragedy buried under all the sarcasm and rage. This didn't have to end this way. It wasn't cursed. It wasn't doomed by the source material. It was undone by ego, by people who thought they knew better than the story itself. Season 4 isn't a chance at redemption, it's a reminder. A reminder that audiences will forgive mistakes, but they won't forgive being ignored. They won't forgive being talked down to. And they definitely won't forgive watching something they loved get hollowed out and sold back to them as progress. When the final episode eventually airs and the lights quietly go out, The Witcher won't be remembered as a bold adaptation that stumbled. It'll be remembered as wasted potential on an industrial scale. A warning sign to every future franchise handed over to people more interested in reshaping a story than understanding why it mattered in the first place. So if anyone is still watching, it's not because the show earned it. It's because they haven't let go yet. And once they do, there will be nothing left to save. At the end of the day, The Witcher Season 4 doesn't feel like the continuation of a story. It feels like the aftermath of a bad decision nobody wants to take responsibility for. This is what happens when a show outlives its purpose, but not its budget. Everything about it screams obligation. Obligation to contracts, obligation to investors, obligation to a release schedule that doesn't care whether the end result has a soul or not. And that's why watching it feels so empty. There's no hunger behind it, no urgency, no sense that anyone involved is trying to prove something or say something meaningful. It's just content, manufactured and pushed out because the algorithm demands it. Once upon a time, The Witcher should have made you feel something. Fear, excitement, tension, even awe. Now the strongest emotion it provokes is mild annoyance mixed with disbelief that it's still going. Season 4 isn't going to crash and burn in spectacular fashion. It won't implode dramatically, it'll just fade, episode by episode, scene by scene, until people stop bothering to even hate it. And that's the quiet, humiliating end reserved for stories that forget why they mattered. Years from now, nobody will rewatch this and say, you know what? They really pulled it together in the end. They'll barely remember it existed at all. And that might be the cruelest irony of all. A world filled with monsters, magic, and destiny undone not by controversy, but by boredom. So when Netflix asks if you're ready for another season of The Witcher, the honest answer isn't anger or outrage, it's a shrug. Because once indifference sets in, there's no coming back from it. And for this show, indifference isn't coming. It's already here. By the time The Witcher Season 4 finally reaches its conclusion, the real story won't be about monsters, magic, or destiny. It will be about what happens when a series loses its way completely. The conversations won't be about who wins or dies, or even about clever twists. They'll be about disbelief, frustration, and the quiet, creeping realization that this once promising saga became a cautionary tale in front of everyone's eyes. The legacy of this season won't be measured in ratings or cliffhangers. It'll be measured in indifference, the ultimate punishment for any storyteller. Fans who stuck around will watch not because they care about the outcome, but to witness the inevitable decline, to see just how far the show can stretch the corpse of its own mythology before it finally collapses entirely. Netflix might celebrate it as another success because the cameras rolled and the episodes aired, but the truth is harsher. Season 4 isn't a triumph. It's the final nail in a coffin that should have been closed years ago. And perhaps the most bitter irony is that it could have been so different. With respect for the source material, a coherent vision, and the right leadership, this could have been legendary. Instead, it's a masterclass in how mismanagement, hubris, and creative contempt can turn potential into a slow, agonizing fade. At this point, watching The Witcher isn't an adventure. It's a grim exercise in patience, curiosity,